The word anime is very often associated with the anime series, which are undoubtedly well loved and attract more and more fans every day. However, diving into an anime series can prove itself to be quite a commitment, as some of the most popular ones count 100 plus episodes. Although some shorter yet amazing series can be found if one takes the time to do a bit of digging here and there. One needs to be prepared to invest a lot of time into this world. An easy solution to take the first step into this incredibly rich and diverse world is to turn to anime movies. To make this process easier, here I am with the list of top 15 anime movies that you should watch before you die. Each of the movie mentioned in this video is 100% worth watching. I'm sure you won't regret watching any of it. So without any further ado, let's start with our video. On the 15 number, the movie name is Dragon Ball Super Broly. Introducing the antagonist named Broly, this movie was well received primarily due to the expansion of the Super Saiyan lore that it brought. With Vegeta and Goku in the prime form, the battles here had the benefit of a cinematic budget. The story for the Dragon Ball Super movie Broly was very good. At first, I was not a fan of them going back and changing the original story that was established in the Dragon Ball, which was already sort of homemade spin-off. But after watching it and seeing the execution behind it, I don't necessarily think that it was all that bad. I guess I wasn't just comfortable with the change, but at least in this version we get to know more about the original story of the Saiyans. The overall story behind the movie was very good. The original story behind the movie was very good and simple as it should be. We all know what we came here for, and that's to watch Broly whoop some ass and getting a story of his own. And that was actually great to watch. Overall, an amazing movie to watch with your DBZ fan friends. On the 14th number, the movie name is Whisper of Heart. The story is based on a manga by Aoi Hiragi. What I liked about this is that it focuses on a problem that each of us go through at a certain point in our lives. What we want to be when we grow up. This is usually affected by our own capabilities, dreams, certain circumstances, and people around us that either pull us down or help us keep going. I think students can relate to this plot better since they are going through similar to what the characters in the story are. The strength of Whisper of Heart is the strength all films that have been touched by Miyazaki seems to have. That is, the details. In this film, the things that have impressed me were the little extra movements that were contained in each character's movement. It's something that you will rarely get to see in any anime. At least this consistently outside of Miyazaki films. Whether it to be reaching the lamp cord from the bell, failing and needing to sit up and do it properly, or whether it be the normal silences in the conversations. Everything just feels a lot more real, a lot more vibrant than most of the films out there. On the 13th number, the movie name is Ghost in the Shell. Cyborg Cops battles an anonymous super hacker who takes the control of people's computerized brains and forces them to do his bidding. It's a wicked sci-fi thriller, yet it's also so much more than that. Not only it is a refreshingly original take on the standard cops versus criminal plot, but it manages to do in such an intelligent manner that at its core, the movie asks the audience, what is it that makes us humans? Although it never truly finds the answer. It gets closer to it than any other films has yet dared to go. The best part is, with all the philosophical, existential and technical chatter, it never really tries to beat the audience over the head with it. Many of the big questions are handled in a subtle way that keeps the pace of the film going, while on the other side, still making the audience think. Ghost in the Shell is a cyberpunk movie at its best. On the 12th number, the movie name is The Tale of the Princess Kaguya. Kaguya Hime no Monogatari, or The Tale of the Princess Kaguya, is a Studio Ghibli film that was created and directed by none other than legendary Isao Takahata and was released during the year of 2013. You would expect that with Takahata being behind this movie, that it would deliver as always, and you are certainly right in this regard. Please do note that this movie is one of those movies that is slow, long, and it takes the time to tell the story. So if you are expecting some kind of action or tension to come out of it, then this movie does not contain any of those things. With that being said, the topic of this movie is about life as a whole. From its beauty to the struggles and hardship that comes with it, to the growth of its individual characters, from the young adolescent to responsible adults, This movie shows us life's many cycles, from the growth of the little princess Kaguya to the daily course of the workers, the struggle of the elderly, the antics of the children, and the habits of the animals. It shows everything in this life that has to offer, and that too in just two long, magnificent story, coupled with some beautiful visuals and an engaging soundtrack. Since this movie tells the story of life, if you are one of those people who are feeling down currently in your life, this is the movie that you should watch. On the 11th number, the movie name is Castle in the Sky. Castle in the Sky is the third film made by Hayao Miyazaki, who I have come to believe that is one of the most masterful storytellers. The story is based on the Laputa of Gulliver's Travels, a floating city of scientists and ideologists which is a legend, a dream of explorers. The young miner Pazu in the story has a goal, which is to find the Laputa just as his father did before. And one day, a girl named Shita, who is wearing a magical necklace, drifts down from the sky into the Pazu's arm, and there their adventures begin. This movie has a touch of magic and science fiction to it. Much of a film takes place in the air. Miyazaki does have a brilliant means to deal with the scenes in the sky. The huge military dirigible floating in the sky, air pirates flying in the unwieldy flying machine, Pazu and Shita travels in the tractative kite, filling with the scenes of action, adventure, battles, and wonders. In Castle in the Sky, environmentalism has been the central part of the film. The landscape is overexploited. The towns and the valleys looks dirty and is great need to heal, while floating island Laputa is so beautiful and peaceful. There is an underlining message about the environment as well as the need for balance with the earth. On the 10th number, the movie name is Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Nausicaa takes place in the post-apocalyptic world several hundred years after the global war destroyed most of the planet's life in just 7 days. The majority of the planet is covered with toxic jungles and dominated by mutant insects. The majority of the planet's soil was so polluted by the war that the only plant that adapted and survived were highly radioactive and toxic to humans. Although it later turned out that this future flora can be reasoned to be non-toxic if grown in some of the remaining clean soil. Nausicaa is the princess of the small wind valley civilization, squeezed between two warring military juggernauts. Nausicaa is one of the very few humans left alive who still believes that nature hasn't turned its back on mankind and worked to recoil the mankind with nature. She desires to learn how to live with the mutant insect and detoxify the forest rather than trying to exterminate them. Nausicaa unwillingly becomes involved in a massive war between two neighboring superpowers and must stop a plot to resurrect one of the giants, organic WMDs that caused the apocalypse in the first place. Nausicaa must find a way to both end the war and stop the insects from wiping out mankind, which is a pretty tall order for most princesses. I don't want to spoil too much, but the plot, adventure, and world building are absolutely spectacular for the young adult movie, especially factoring in the time in which it was written. On the 9th number, the movie name is Neon Genesis Evangelion: The End of Evangelion. Evangelion is widely considered as one of the most influential anime created in the 1990s. It's extremely well known for its brave attempt to turn the mecha genre on its head, its deeper character development, and its unorthodox storyline. Created by acclaimed studio Gainax and written by the praised writer Hideaki Anno, Evangelion has been called a masterpiece by many fans. One of the most well-known aspects of Evangelion is its story. It is simply unorthodox, as it does the process of not feeding all the story to the viewers. It slowly feeds it to the viewer, giving the viewers only half of the story, or sometimes giving the scenes without any context. For some anime, this would be a disaster waiting to happen. But in the case of Evangelion, this is done almost consistently and masterfully, holding back information on some important subjects at perfect times. Many have criticized the holding of frames later in the series, but taken into the context of the fact that they were running out of the money to make the show, it is understandable. For many fans, their major criticism of this anime is handling of the ending, which many considered far too out there and simply crap. I too am not huge fan of the ending, but taking the ending to the TV series, the ending can make a lot more sense, and thus I enjoyed it so far. Evangelion's story is a masterstroke in writing, one which has been hard fit to replicate. On the 8th number, the movie name is Wolf Children's. Teenage Hana is hardworking girl putting herself through college. During a class, her eyes falls on a man who enthusiastically and diligently takes note, but he has no textbook and he disappears before roll is taken. Intrigued by him, she searches him out and learns that he sits through classes but doesn't attend the school. From what we see, he works with a moving company, delivering goods to houses. He comes to university and bumps through classes to learn. Hana works at laundromat to make end meet and meets him when her day is over. We never learn this man's name, but he becomes Hana's world and she his. To call this film a movie about werewolves is doing it a mighty injustice. To call it a spirited, charming, and heart-reading look about family is more accurate. And while it is always about the Okami no Kodomo, it is carried by the Hana's life. Hana does what she can to keep her children safe and alive. She removes them from the unburied world and carries them deep into a rural village where they are free to develop and understand the other half of them. On the 7th number, the movie name is My Neighbor Totoro. Totoro's story is incredible. It captures imagination of two girls with very different personalities. Satsuki, the older, responsible girl who takes care of the household responsibility while her mother is sick, and little Mei, a veritable firecracker whose curiosity knows no limits. What made this movie so incredible was how well it captures the imagination of kids of their age. Just watching it makes you think back about all those fun things you did when you were younger. Miyazaki's artwork is stunning. Despite the fact that by now it's obviously somewhat older, the animation is still superior to anything Disney can throw at us. His specialization in artwork of nature makes this film a delightful piece of eye candy. The music is one of the greatest things about this movie too. It gives you a huge amount of nostalgia from your childhood. Totoro is easily still my favorite movie in the world for over a decade. Highly recommended to watch, rewatch and watch with everyone else. On the 6th number, the movie name is Howl's Moving Castle. I have watched this movie many times since it is one of my favorite Miyazaki films. So why not put this movie in this list? I have also read the book, which takes a much different direction than the film does. And yes, it may seem like highly rated movie, but it's not. Trust me, if you will watch it, you will surely love it. The story is about a girl named Sophie who gets turned into an old woman and ends up living with a wizard named Howl in his moving castle. The story is the only part I felt were lacking in this movie. Though I have to admit I see more flaws with the story after reading the book, even though I find some movie much better. The animation is absolutely stunning and many of the background looks so realistic. I also have to say that I am impressed with how Sophie is animated and how it is so easy to tell when she is aging just simply by looking at the animation. Her voice also helps though. Overall, this is the most impressive Miyazaki art I have ever seen, and I really haven't seen a movie like this in a long time. On the 5th number, the movie name is A Silent Voice. Social anxiety, suicide, self-pity, forgiveness, attachment, acceptance, and the desire to be connected, and most of all the complexity of human communication and emotions are all covered in this movie. We follow a character who closes his mind and refuses not to listen to create his own cynical narrative. And in it, we learn voice, which is koe or communication, has many shapes and forms, which is in Japanese katachi. The plot evoked a roller coaster of emotions, some easy to emphasize with and some other made easy to resonate with. The plot starts vigorously but with a pace you could easily keep up with. It slightly stagnates to build context until the plot's climax. A climax that I don't want to ruin the unsuspecting. The strategic retreat from the plot's focus enables for a good few laughs and set up what was to come very well. But it turns a 2-hour movie into what I feel like 3-hour movie. This movie will keep you hooked throughout its run, and I'm sure that you will enjoy, cry, laugh and will feel many types of emotions while watching this movie. So A Silent Voice or Koe no Katachi is a must-watch movie for everyone on this planet. On the 4th number, the movie name is Princess Mononoke. Princess Mononoke was released in Japan on 1997. It is a Studio Ghibli film written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki, and it is his 7th feature film. Having seen some of the Miyazaki's best work, I can safely tell you that without any hesitation that this is his 2nd best movie. This goes without saying that the animation in Princess Mononoke is astonishing. I found it to be breathtaking and gorgeous to look at it. Every time I rewatch Princess Mononoke, I am floored by the amount of detail and the amount of work that was put into this animation. I even noticed some small details that actually looks impressive after rewatching. This is one of the Miyazaki's example of the tour de force and one of the finest presentation of Studio Ghibli that has ever put out. To complement the majestic animation in Princess Mononoke is the film score by Joe Hisaishi. The film score or the music is also very good in Princess Mononoke. Some of the best music that Hisaishi has ever made in my opinion. There are other film scores to other Miyazaki films that are just as good, but I think this is one of that stick out the most. Just have a quick listen to its main theme and you will understand why this soundtrack is so good. On the third number, the movie name is Your Name. Your Name or Kimi no Nawa. A movie that I decided to watch one night out of boredom and lack of shows to watch. A movie that changed the way I pursue anime to this day. And a movie that I absolutely do not regret watching. The manga follows the same story as the movie does. Because it makes sense, because it's an adaptation of the movie into a manga form. There are a few subtle additions in the manga that I find great, since which were cut from the movie are added to the manga. I think most of you guys have already watched this Kimi no Nawa movie and I don't think I need to explain much more about it. Kimi no Nawa or Your Name is by far one of my favorite breathtaking movies to watch. The visuals in this movie is one of my favorites of all time and I think everyone should give this movie a try. On the second number, the movie name is Grave of the Fireflies. There are very few movies I have seen can bring me to the brink of tears, and only a handful of those can actually haunt me days after seeing them. Grave of the Fireflies is one of those rare movies that I have seen that did this to me. Very few films have ever made me feel as bad as this one did. Try to think of the one of the saddest movie you have ever seen, Schindler's List or movies like that, and when you will watch this movie, this will blow it out of the water. The film has the power to devastate you, to move you, to bring you to the brink of tears and then push you over the chaotic world. This is Grave of the Fireflies. Set during the last days of World War II, while the US Air Force was firebombing Japanese cities, Grave of the Fireflies is a movie about a young boy named Sata and his 4-year-old sister Setsuko. When their mother is killed in the firebombing of Tokyo, Sata is forced to care for his little sister in a nation ripped away by war and famine. With his father far away serving in Japanese Navy, Sata is the only one who can care for his sister. The only shared between these two siblings is something that will forever leave an impression on me. His need to give his sister the very best while not being able to provide for her is very a real feeling. On the first number, the movie name is Spirited Away. When I first saw this movie, I didn't see what the big deal was. Alright, so the girl gets whisked away to a fantasy world. We have heard that story before. And unlike many other movies, there's no dramatic love story or epic battles and action sequences to keep you at the edge of the seat. Consequently, I didn't think it as being very exciting. Still, I watched it again and again for some reasons. I got that reason when I was watching this movie for the third time. Spirited Away isn't meant to be anything grand. With all the bells and the whistles, it has a quiet, subdued way of telling a simple story about a simple girl in a very strange world. Instead of expecting something huge, just sit back, watch and appreciate the world and story Miyazaki has finely crafted for all of us to enjoy. To get the technical aspect, the art is of course amazing. The colors are rich and the animation is fluid as fuck. Whether Chihiro and her family first walk into the spirit world, you can practically feel the breeze of the air as you will watch this movie. The light of the spirit world at night are breathtaking, and watching the train ride closer to the end of the movie, coupled with some amazing scores, makes this anime movie Spirited Away as one of the most favorite animation sequences out of anything I have ever seen. And I think that concluded about the video about top 15 anime movies to watch before you die. What are your thoughts about these movies? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and if you enjoyed this video, just don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel because I post daily anime content about top 10 top 5 listings, anime reviews, recommendations, news, theories and all sort of anime content on daily basis. So if you enjoyed, please subscribe, and that was it, and I will see you in the next one. Sayonara.